kind of how it applies to the stories we've been telling already this morning. Any comments or questions? Richard's got the microphone there. Any observations, things you'd like to share from your table discussion of this concept of the 2 feet in action? Father Harney.
I think that many times we think that these things have to like flow out of an organized group, but a lot of what I see as a priest is people take their Catholic, I don't know what happened here. They take their Catholic faith to the public school system as an individual, or they take their Catholic faith into the legislative body of the state, and you know, it's not knowledge in the whole parish how they're using their faith, but to, you know, the priest or some people on the staff might know. But I think that a lot of times it's like we were saying, that the liturgy affects all of us, and we can't help but see in our workplaces or in public arenas how we can put things into place, sometimes sly as a fox or whatever. But anyway, I think that that's something that is done by individuals that are just affected by the sacraments. So
that's such a great comment, and certainly my experience is similar. You know, you think of us being people of salt, right? We're to flavor the world with the gospel. If you put salt, if you like to cook, and you put salt in a part of your stew or your whatever it is you're cooking, and you don't stir it around, you don't move it around and get it throughout the whole sauce, the whole soup, and you're gonna have a big lump of salt in one part of it. It's gonna be highly salted, and the rest of it won't have any of that. You need to have the salt of the gospel in every workplace, right? In every person's lives. And it isn't always just an official ministry of the church. I'm a public official for the city of Seattle, and of course, particularly in Seattle, but really anywhere, you can't talk about your religion in your official capacity. But people know, and people ask, there's something about you. Tell me your story, right? And I bring prayer and my presence and the Eucharist into my work every day. I couldn't do it if I didn't have that. And I'm sure that the same is true for you and for many of the people you know. Thank you, Father Arnie, for that. Other comments?
Hey, good, Mark. Thanks, Mark.
Hey, thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. So where it kind of this microphone is really hot, so I'm going to hold it far away.
That's because you're hot.
This is why I'm hot. Okay. So Henry Kruger was a parishioner at Risen Christ when we were parishioners at Risen Christ too. He was a shining example of just go do it. Just go out and do it. He's just really shown me that one person can make a difference just by being present there. The role that I'm in now, I found myself in this role because I didn't want to do it. When I was asked to be director of prison ministry, I said, no, I don't want to do it. And I reflected why, and the answer came because I'm really comfortable where I'm at. When I heard myself say that out loud, I knew that I had no choice but to go. It's led me to spots that are places I never thought I would be, although my guidance counselor said, you're going to be in prison one day. So they were kind of right. But there's so much to share about just what we've talked about here. I volunteer at the maximum security prison. I see the guys on death row. They're not just names on a list. They're faces. They're not a number. They're people that I know. I got to think about baseball. It gets me emotional because it is part of who we are to reach out to them. Something on the list that jumped out to me was it said, tutor children. If anybody wants to change the future, they work with kids. That's how you do it. That's how it's going to happen. So I guess really what I would share with everybody is if you feel really comfortable where you're at, Look at the spot that's going to make you uncomfortable and go there.
And let me build on that, Mark. I really appreciate you saying that. One of the insights of this 2 feet of love and action is that we are all called, certainly as the quote from Pope Francis that we began with talks about, we are all called to meet the immediate needs that Christ puts in front of us, where we encounter Christ in the humanity and the reality of a specific person with needs. But also we're called to alleviate those conditions which create those needs. Some people are more comfortable with the policy level, the advocacy level. They really feel called to that, but they don't really like to get, if I can be honest, don't like to get their hands dirty. Don't want to smell the sheep. They're stinky, right? But they are called to not only advocate for justice, but to bring justice to individuals here and now, real people, Christ, the true person in front of them. And the similar thing is true with lots of people we know that they love handing out the sandwiches. They really feel called. They find Christ in the immediate need and that transaction, if you will, that encounter of meeting that need, of giving Christ that cup of water, of clothing the naked. But they need to come out of their comfort zone too. We who are really called and feel most comfortable in direct service, we also need to advocate for a change to those conditions that create the need for that service. And that's the idea here between the 2 feet of love and action, that as parish leaders, as pastors, as deacons, as parish leaders, catechists, whatever our role is in the church and in our individual lives, we're to animate the faithful, the members of our parish, the people of the Church of Idaho, animate them to go, as Mark said, where they're not comfortable. If they're put off by having, as Jack talked about, having to look at that homeless person, get too close to that homeless person, they need to go there. If they're uncomfortable writing a letter to their city council, or uncomfortable writing a letter to their senator, or uncomfortable standing out on the street corner with a sign that says end the death penalty, maybe they need to go there, right? To bring about justice immediately and longer term. I want to read another story. This one is a multimedia presentation. This one came to me via email, so I'm going to be reading it to you. Actually, there's 2 emails, and I'm going to embarrass Deacon Uhlenkott in the back there because this is about his mom. So his mom wrote this to me. Well, I need to correct one thing in the record is Henry Kruer, his father Day, pointed out to me, Henry Kruer was not actually Respect Life Director for the Diocese. He was the President of Right to Life of Idaho. Similar sort of role, but just to correct the record. So Carrie Uhlenkott is very involved in Right to Life of Idaho. Just a funny little backstory. I met Carrie here in Boise when I was Respect Life Director for the Diocese. But my wife met Carrie back in probably about 1980-ish at Gonzaga University. My wife was an undergraduate there, got involved with a couple of Jesuit scholastics who were involved in Respect Life work, pro-life work. She and a friend of hers and some other students formed the first chapter of Gonzaga Students for Life. And they did ministry at an abortion clinic and advocated for an end to abortion. And they met Carrie when she was in Spokane with a babe in arms, one of your older siblings probably, Mark, they're marching for life in Spokane, driving all the way from Cottonwood to do that. So Carrie's been at this work a long time. Let me read her story to you. My first real commitment to the pro-life cause began in 1972 while attending Whitworth College in Spokane, Washington, with majors in French, political science, and education. Washington State was at that time deciding whether or not to legalize abortion. I was working on campus to effect a pro-life vote among the students. At one point, my French teacher decided to have a debate in class on the subject and asked us to raise our hands if we were for or against legalization. To my dismay, I was the only one whose hand was raised against legalization, even though this was a Christian college. I was then asked to defend my views in French A very humbling experience, she writes. Chuck, that's Mark's dad, her husband, Carrie's husband. Chuck's and my commitment to pro-life issues continue as we were dating. One of our first dates was to the Wilkie pro-life slides at St. Mary's Church in Cottonwood. Boy, they know how to party, don't they? We were married in 1973, the year abortion on demand was legalized, but did not become actively involved until 1980. That was the year we decided to go to the National Right to Life Convention in Anaheim, California. They showed the film Assignment Life, which had a dramatic effect on both of us. From then on, we as a family with 3 children at the time made the decision to become more actively involved. Little did we know at the time where that commitment would lead us. We joined our local and state pro-life organizations, and as a family, we attended many pro-life conventions throughout the U.S., having the opportunity to come in contact with many of the courageous leaders of the pro-life movement, such as Dr. Jack Wilkie, Mother Teresa, Dr. Bernard Nathanson, Father Frank Pavone, and many others. We have been to the NRLC March for Life in D.C. and to countless marches for life in Idaho, and have prayed at abortion facilities in Idaho and several other states. For many years, we were on the Right to Life of Idaho Speakers Bureau and drove around the state showing pro-life films and speaking at church and school functions. Mark, did you go on some of those road trips, I assume? Yeah, I bet you did. I'm sure that this wonderful vocation was formed, of course, in that family, but certainly out of him seeing the active witness and work of his parents. Our 8 children have also taken active roles to counter the culture of death from an early age in their elementary and high schools, at the Idaho legislature, and then especially at Franciscan University of Steubenville, where most of them have prayed and ministered to women seeking abortions at an abortion facility in Pittsburgh. I became the legislative coordinator and lobbyist for Right to Life in the early 1980s. Over the last 2 decades, Right to Life of Idaho has passed many protective pieces of legislation curbing abortion and euthanasia in Idaho, and we've been able to work behind the scenes to stop pro-life legislation as well. We have come face to face with many women and men harmed by abortion, many wishing to tell their stories, many too wounded yet to embrace the culture of life. We've counseled women and men against abortion, encouraging them to embrace the culture of life, and have seen miracles happen when they do. The pro-life movement, here's the reach out together. The pro-life movement is the most ecumenical movement in the world today. It consists of some of the most amazing people of all different faiths. Working side by side, these, our brothers and sisters in the pro-life trenches, have given us ample opportunity to share our faith and clarify misunderstandings about the Catholic Church. I've seen those who had once strongly defended the practice of artificial contraception embrace natural family planning after becoming fully informed on the teachings of the Catholic Church. We've seen others, such as Bernard Nathanson, an avowed atheist, embrace the Catholic faith himself. The pro-life mission has not always been easy for our family. The spiritual battle is often burdensome and overwhelming, but we've been blessed in countless ways as a family by belonging to a movement of those who are loving advocates for women and for the little ones who cannot speak for themselves. I then asked Carrie to share with me, if she could, to share with me also where, I have to find this is a string of emails here, where she also has been involved in direct service. So she writes, over the years there have been so many instances when we've been placed in direct contact with mothers or fathers seeking abortion or with their family or friends wishing to help prevent one. So much so that I've taken classes on how to counsel women with unplanned pregnancies. There have been counseling sessions by phone, after which we put the mothers in touch with local pregnancy centers. One time we delivered pro-life material to a husband who was forcing his wife to have an abortion. He reversed his decision after seeing the material. Many times over the years we've been contacted at the legislature by women and men wanting or needing to tell their stories of how they regret an abortion. For instance, when we were having hearings on the informed consent legislation, one young man showed us a canceled check of an abortion he had procured for his girlfriend. He had carried this check in his wallet for years, deeply regretting the loss of his child. Excuse me. Many women, too, testified about how they have regretted their abortions. Their stories are truly heartrending. We work with Rachel's Vineyard post-abortive ministry for women, men, and their families as well. So, I think I wanted to end with Carrie's story, because I think that one of the things that Carrie, if you take her story in combination with Henry and Judge John Mitchell, you take the three stories together, you really see the church's commitment to the value and dignity of human life, right, at all of its stages, from conception to natural death. And these are faithful Catholics, right? Faithful Catholics who have felt called in one way or another to address immediate needs, as well as to advocate for the end of conditions that bring about the loss of dignity to human life. These are stories about people who either entered direct service, right? They stepped with that foot of direct service, meeting Christ and the immediate needs of somebody, or in Carrie's case, began with advocacy. And advocacy led her, just by her witness, to encounter Christ in those men and women who either were seeking abortion or who were wounded by having had one or being involved in one. And I think as you reflect on this presentation and you look at this handout or the wearesaltandlight.org website that Susan shared with us yesterday, I hope you will be encouraged to encourage people you work with in your parishes who are deeply involved in direct service to broaden their reach and become involved in advocacy. And those who are involved in advocacy, to encourage them to humanize their work by encountering Christ in the individual needs of brothers and sisters in the world. And with that, Susan? I think we need, there we go.
So we're hoping. All right, so we're hoping that one thing you might consider doing is looking for these stories in your parish, in the diocese, and recording, with your phone. We have all these great ways of recording things, either the audio part or a whole story of someone with video who can serve as an example of how this works.
And thank you so much for remembering that, Susan. I was supposed to tell you about that. I was just so in the moment there. What Susan was alluding to, how many here have heard the NPR project called StoryCorps? Right? It's my Friday cry on the way to work. Right? I listen to that. They always bring tears to my eyes. StoryCorps is a joint project of NPR and the Library of Congress to document stories of ordinary and extraordinary people being interviewed by their loved ones or their colleagues in an audio fashion. And I've learned of a Jewish community in Seattle that uses that approach, the StoryCorps approach, to gather the stories of the people in their community. And so what we wanted to, and what I should have done, and thank you for reminding me, Susan, we wanted you to encourage and play with that. So I've read a couple or told you a couple of stories here. And if I'd had the time and geography had been closer, I would have recorded them and played those for you. But it's something you can do. Learn about the people in your parish that are walking the walk of social justice and charitable works, that have true feet of love and action. Interview them. Get it on tape. Play it at prayer groups. Encourage them to give their story as a gift to the parish so that the Spirit can work through that. There are actually, if you go to storycorps.org, on their website, they actually have all kinds of resources to help you with your own story collection project. They have starter questions and other suggestions on how to do that. So we just thought that might be a nice takeaway for you, something you need to think about, a project. People tell their stories, they're encouraged by each other, and it encourages them in their work too. So thank you, Susan.
So going back to wearesaltandlight.org, the 2 feet of love in action, as it shows what you have in front of you, you can find it on usccb.org. You can find it through wearesaltandlight.org. Wearesaltandlight.org has a resource in the map of the site, and you can sort with this resource. You can sort by campus, by youth, by young adults, by diocese resources, by parish resources. Lots of different ways to sort. You can also just do a search. So you could search for 2 feet, and this resource is available, including the facilitator's guide, which has everything from an opening prayer to a closing prayer, and an opening quiz to a closing quiz, and everything in between. And it's in English and in Spanish. And you can also buy these because they are currently in print. One of the things that came up yesterday, I just wanted to point out, and I know some of you brought a few of these. This resource connects the sacraments to social mission. This is how the sacraments call us, give us that grace. What the Baltimore Catechism, a sacrament is an outward sign instituted by Christ to give grace. So this tells you what that grace is going to do on an individual basis and on a community basis. And this resource is also available in Spanish, and it is online as well. We Are Salt and Light also has a assessment. So you can click on Pray Together, or Reach Out Together, or Learn Together, or Act Together, and get a series of questions. And when you finish answering those questions, it's going to pop up resources that are recommended, given the profile that you outlined in there. And you can print those questions, so if parish council or committee wanted to do that together and input the information and come up with a resource recommendation, you could do that as a group as well. And the only resource that's newer than We Are Salt and Light are these books, Green Street Park and Drop by Drop. And these books are the 2 feet of love in action for children. So Drop by Drop is an international story that talks about a child encountering immediate needs and also the long-term situation and what can be done, how even children can participate in both the 2 feet of love in action. And Green Street Park is a U.S. domestic story along the same lines. And both of these stories are about care for creation. So they're very timely in terms of the upcoming encyclical by Pope Francis. So you can order these in bulk. You can order them as a First Communion gift or whatever. We're also hoping that, as many of you know, adult formation is very challenging. There are a lot of gaps. We're hoping that a parent reading these elementary age books to their child will also have an opportunity to encounter the 2 feet. And our partner in this project, Loyola Press, there are all kinds of resources online that go with these books, including in the back of the books, lots of other information about other resources. So there's lots out there. We Are Salt and Light has a whole section on preaching. It has a whole section on mission trips and reflection for mission trips, reflection before you go, reflection when you come back. A lot of the things that have come up while we're here, because we did so much listening nationally about resources that people needed. There are many, many resources on We Are Salt and Light, and we hope that you will find that of use. So thank you very much, and thank you, Pierce.